We've gone through 8 of the 9 parts of speech, so that means there's only one left. And this last one is the simplest and, in a way, the funniest. An interjection expresses a strong emotion and is not grammatically connected to the rest of the sentence. In other words, an interjection is a word that just kind of hangs out there by itself. Doesn't happen in writing very often, happens a little more often in speech, but it isn't much of a grammatical problem. Here are some examples of interjections. Gosh, yikes, ouch, hooray, or Homer Simpson's favorite, doh. Those are interjections. And since they're not connected grammatically to the rest of the sentence, you don't need to know much about them. Recognizing parts of speech is, for some students, a little tricky. Why is it important to be able to recognize parts of speech in a sentence? It's because in order to apply the rules of proper grammar, you need to know what kind of words you're dealing with, because there are particular rules that apply to the use of verbs, nouns, pronouns, adjectives, and so on. We've already talked a bit about some of those rules, and in all the other programs that are part of this series, more of those rules and their applications will be explained. So being able to recognize parts of speech in the sentences that you write is rather important. Here are a couple of tips about how to recognize parts of speech in sentences that you're writing. First, the easiest thing to find is usually the main verb. So look for the verb that appears in the sentence when you're trying to identify parts of speech in your sentences. Then look for the subject of the verb, that is, the person, place, thing, or idea which does the action of the verb, or which the state of being of the verb refers to. That subject will be a noun or a pronoun. Once you've identified the verb and the noun or pronoun which is the subject of the verb, you can then begin to fill in the rest of the sentence. You can identify the modifying words, adjectives, articles, and adverbs. You can identify the connecting words, the conjunctions and prepositions. And little by little you can fill out all the rest of the sentence and understand how it all works together. So begin by identifying the verb, then look for the subject of the verb and gradually fill in the other parts of the sentence. That's usually the easiest way to understand the structure of a sentence. And remember, too, that the same word may be used as more than one part of speech. We've already seen a couple of examples, but let me leave you with one more illustration of this important fact. So you can't tell, remember, a word's part of speech just by looking at it in isolation. You need to look at how it's being used in the sentence. Take a word like surprise. A word like surprise can be used as more than one part of speech. In this sentence, Ben surprised Nancy with a party on her birthday. The word surprised is being used as a verb. It describes the action that Ben took, what he did in the sentence. How about in this sentence? It was a surprise party. Here, surprise is being used as an adjective. It modifies or gives more information about the noun party. It tells what kind of party, a surprise party. How about in this sentence? That was quite a surprise. Here, surprise is being used as a noun. It's a thing. The party is being described as a certain type of thing, namely a surprise. So in these 3 sentences, the word surprise is being used first as a verb, then as an adjective, then as a noun. This is a very common phenomenon in the English language, the same word being adapted to serve several different purposes. So always look carefully at the word in the context of the sentence before you decide what part of speech it is. In your study guide, we have an exercise designed to test and to let you practice your ability to recognize parts of speech. Let's look at the first sentence and then decide what part of speech each of these words represents. My car gets 30 miles to the gallon. Following my recommendation a moment ago, let's start by looking for the verb. The verb here is gets. What is the subject of the verb? The subject is the noun car, and it's preceded by the pronoun my. My is, in this case, referring back to myself. I am the antecedent, even though I don't appear in the sentence. And pronoun my is what's technically known as a possessive pronoun. Notice that it's used almost in the same way as an adjective, but it's a pronoun because it's referring back to a person, and therefore it's taking the place of a noun. So my car gets is pronoun, noun, verb. The remaining words are an adjective, a noun, a preposition, an article, and a noun. So 30 is an adjective. It modifies the noun miles. 2 is a preposition, and it's followed by the article, the, and the noun, gallon. Now let's look at the second sentence. People say that too many young athletes today are selfish. There are 2 verbs in this sentence. Say is the first verb, and its subject is the noun, people. The second verb is are, which is a verb of being near the end of the sentence, and its subject is the noun, athletes. Now we can fill in the other words, now that we've identified the verbs and their subjects. The word that is a pronoun. Technically it's known as a relative pronoun, and what it's doing is introducing a subordinate clause. So that is a pronoun. To is an adverb modifying the adjective many. Young is another adjective modifying athletes. And today is an adverb which modifies the verb are. That is, the young athletes of today are selfish. When are they selfish, or how are they selfish? They are selfish today. So the adverb today modifies that verb are. And the final word, selfish, is another adjective. Remember, we saw that adjectives can sometimes follow a verb of being and refer back to the noun, which is the subject of the verb. In this case, the adjective selfish follows the verb are and refers back to the athletes. So the athletes, noun, are selfish, adjective. Let's look at the next sentence. The Hudson River in New York is not actually a river. In fact, it is a tidal estuary. 2 verbs in this sentence. The first one is, and the subject is river. The entire first clause is talking about what the Hudson River is. So river is the noun, which is the subject of the verb is. The second verb is also is in the second clause, and the pronoun it is its subject. Now let's talk about the other words here. We said that river is a noun. The Hudson, preceding the word river, are an article and an adjective. Hudson is an adjective telling what river. In is a preposition, and New York is a noun. It's a proper noun naming a particular state in the United States, and it's the object of the preposition. It's part of the entire prepositional phrase, in New York. We saw that not is one of the most common adverbs, and that's how it's being used here, and actually is another adverb, also modifying the verb is. A is, of course, an article, and river is a noun. Now we move into the second clause. In fact is a prepositional phrase. So in is the preposition, and fact is a noun. It is a pronoun. Is, we've already seen, is the verb. And a tidal estuary is an article, an adjective, and a noun. Estuary is a noun because it names a particular thing. It's a difficult word, so perhaps you don't know that word, but you can tell from the way it's used in this sentence that it must be a noun. For example, it's introduced by an article. So even if you never saw the word estuary before, you can tell it's a noun because the sentence refers to a tidal estuary. And you only put an article in front of a noun. And tidal is an adjective because it tells what kind of estuary. So that's how we would identify the various words in this sentence. How about the next example? Paul Klee created some of the greatest abstract paintings of the 20th century. The verb here is created, and the subject is the noun Paul Klee, a proper noun naming a particular person. Now let's look at the rest of the sentence. Some is a pronoun. Remember, we talked a bit about indefinite pronouns, pronouns which refer to some unnamed thing or group of things. And the some here is referring to an unknown or unidentified group. So it is a pronoun, an indefinite pronoun. Of the greatest abstract paintings, all of that is a prepositional phrase. Of is the preposition that begins it. The is an article. Greatest and abstract are both adjectives, and paintings is the noun. So the whole thing taken together is a prepositional phrase, beginning with a preposition and ending with a noun. And the last words of the sentence are also a prepositional phrase, of the 20th century. Of is the preposition, century is the noun, and in between we have the article, the, and the adjective 20th. Now our last example. Wow, you have a really beautiful view of the Rocky Mountains from your balcony. Of course, we had to stick in at least one example of an interjection, and the first word here, wow, is our interjection. It has an exclamation point, which interjections often do, and it's not grammatically connected to the rest of the sentence. The meaning is connected, but there's no special linkage grammatically. Now let's look at the rest of the sentence. The verb is have, and the subject of the verb is you, which is a pronoun. So you have, pronoun and verb, that's the heart of the sentence. Let's look at the rest of what's here. A really beautiful view. A is an article, of course. Really is an adverb, and beautiful is an adjective. All of this goes to modify the noun view. Beautiful is an adjective modifying view, and the adverb really modifies the adjective beautiful. How beautiful? Really beautiful. So any word that modifies an adjective would be an adverb, and that's what really is. Of the Rocky Mountains is a prepositional phrase. Of is the preposition. The is an article. Rocky is an adjective, and mountains is the noun, which Rocky modifies. So of the Rocky Mountains begins with a preposition, ends with a noun, prepositional phrase. And the sentence ends with one more prepositional phrase, from your balcony. From is the preposition, balcony is the noun, and in between we have the pronoun your. Again, it's a possessive pronoun. It tells whose balcony, yours. So the antecedent of that pronoun would be you, the hearer of this sentence. And in effect, the pronoun here acts as a kind of an adjective because it gives a little more information about the noun balcony. You now have a pretty good idea of how these 9 different parts of speech are fitted together to create English sentences. In a way, it's amazing, isn't it, that just 9 different kinds of words can be put together in different combinations to express almost any conceivable human emotion or idea. In the other programs in this series, we'll provide you with additional pointers and rules to follow in selecting among these 9 parts of speech and fitting them together to create English sentences that express your meaning accurately and that are also grammatically correct. I hope you've found this program enjoyable and helpful, and thanks for watching.